Hi there. Today's guest is none other than Vanessa Williams, international star of stage and screen, and pop artist with multiple hit records. Vanessa has a lot to say and limitless talent to offer. I know you're going to enjoy these words that she has to share with us, and I really look forward to this episode. This series was conducted in the spring of 2020 via Instagram, and the audio and video quality do reflect that format. However, the words and insights of these guests are still priceless.
There I am.
Hey!
How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Good. I was wondering, was it too obnoxious to do the interview in front of my gold and platinum records? But I was like,
perfect.
You know what? Exactly. I worked hard for those.
It's absolutely perfect.
Yeah.
All right, people are joining, but I'm going to jump right in. I always say a little bit about the person I'm talking to, because you're definitely a household name, but people know you from various things and not always all the right stuff, and I'd like them to know you for everything that you do. So
the right stuff, baby. What do you mean?
Right. So you were crowned Miss America in 1983 as the first woman of color, which was history. And then fast forward to 1988 with your first studio album and a series of hit records that followed.
Correct.
You're a well-known film and television actor with roles in movies like Soul Food, Eraser, on television with hit shows like Ugly Betty and Desperate Housewives. But that's such a brief about your film and television career. You have 103 acting credits on IMDb.
Do I really?
You do. Yeah,
I worked a long time.
And theater credits, you know, Kiss of the Spider Woman, Into the Woods, After Midnight, many other theater credits. And, you know, people know you from one of your many successes. And so people say this thing of, oh, Vanessa Williams, she was Miss America. Vanessa Williams, she's a pop singer. Wasn't she on a TV show? And that's so much to juggle and so much to deal with. And I think right away that's a great segue to say, how do you choose between all that stuff? You love all these different things, and how do you choose, and how do you keep a balance?
Well, the good thing is that you said all those things, and it's 36 years and I'm still here working. That's the best news out of everything.
Absolutely.
How do I do it? Well, I think firstly, you know, everyone says follow your dreams. I followed my skill set. I mean, I grew up, I actually live in my hometown, where I came back after LA, like back in '92, when there were the riots and Malibu was on fire, and you know, Rodney King and all that stuff. And I fled back to my hometown. I found a house actually in the same town. Wasn't planning on it, but I ended up raising my kids here. But when I grew up, you know, both my parents are music teachers. So music was a requirement in our household. I had to play piano, and then when I was in fourth grade, had to choose an instrument, and I chose a French horn and played that until we graduated. There was no dropping your instrument, especially in middle school when it's uncool to, like, you know, be in the band. I was in the band, orchestra, marching band, chorus, concert choir, did it all. Of course, had to compete in all state and all county because my parents are both music educators. But so I was a musician. I danced because I love to dance. My mother was a big dance fan. So I did modern dance all the way until I graduated. And then I started doing musicals in like middle school into high school, and then summer theater. And then I was getting all the leads. And when it came time to figure out where I wanted to go to school, I said to my counselor, I said, can I major in musical theater? And she's like, well, there were four, we're talking 1981. There were 4 universities at that time that could give you a BFA in musical theater. And I ended up getting into all of them, and ending up studying at Syracuse for musical theater. So I followed my skill set. So that's, I think, what allowed me to have such a large platform, because I have dance training, I have theatrical, you know, theater training, and I am a musician, so I can go in and read music and play piano and you know, have an ear and all that training. So that's helped me have such a broad spectrum in terms of my career. But how I choose, I mean, honestly, and you know this as a musician, sometimes you do stuff for the money because you can't say no. And then sometimes you do something with no money because of the love of it. And that's kind of how I've been able to balance, if you call that balance. But the other thing, while I was working 36 years, I raised 4 kids, and I'm proud of the kids that I turned out. They're all great and creative and smart and giving and wonderful human beings. But you know, my career might have been way different and another plateau had I not taken time to raise my kids. You know, there was things that I turned down because I wasn't available, didn't want to do it, or didn't want my kids to know. Yeah.
Right. Now, you covered so much, and some of it I'm going to ask about, and I'm going to go back to various parts.
Okay.
So you grew up, you know, I've met your mother many times, and she's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
And we are the products of our parents to a large degree. Mm-hmm. And your mother is dynamic, and she's going to outlive all of us.
Yes.
And she's
a go-getter, that's for sure. She's a little
very bright,
cracker.
and she was a music teacher, and so she instilled this work ethic in you, you know.
Well, it's both my parents. I lost my dad in 2006, and he was a music educator. So my mother, they met at Fredonia, SUNY Fredonia, up in upstate New York, and my dad was the instrument guy, and he was playing sax and all the reeds, but he ended up teaching everything, and my mother was in the vocal department. So of course, those two departments would always figure out who was the better musician, and she was a freshman, he was a senior, and they locked eyes freshman year, and she got married when she was 20, he was 24. But my dad was known for doing every job on campus. Oh, Milt's working out the soda shop. Oh, Milt's picking grapes at Welch's Grape Factory. Oh, Milt's the janitor. My dad, you know, came from really humble beginnings, farm country out in Long Island, Oyster Bay. And he was like, when he was in high school, he went to parochial school, and he was playing sax, and he wanted to go to Oyster Bay High School because they had a music program. He did his 4 years, and he was going to be a farmer. And Mr. Knobloff, I think, was his band teacher, and he said, you know, Bill, you should really think about being a teacher because you're really good. And that's what sent him to Fredonia. So teaching, education, all those things were instilled in me, and also my kids. My kids had to all take instruments as well, and my dad actually taught them before he passed away. So it's something that is ingrained for sure in our family.
And your competing in Miss America was almost a fluke, right? Because
Absolutely.
I've heard you tell the story several times, but you entered because your mother said, well, are they going to give you some money? Are they going to give you something?
Well, I had gotten scholarships for my freshman year, sophomore year, and my junior year was coming up. And freshman year is a core year. You're not allowed to perform. So you have to do all your voice, your piano, your breathing, your acting courses, all the things that you do as a musical theater major freshman year. Sophomore year, allowed to perform. So I ended up doing the first musical that year called Swinging on a Star, which was a tribute to Jimmy Van Heusen, and Aaron Sorkin was in the class with me, who's now Mr. Amazing writer and playwright and television writer. And then I did another show, and what they do locally in Syracuse is they kind of scout talent up on where the VPA, the Visual and Performing Arts kids are. And so I was asked by one of my friends, he said, you know, I know this guy, he's on the board of this Miss Greater Syracuse pageant. Would you want to do it? And I was like, no. And then I auditioned for a Cyrano, a Syracuse Stage is a rep company, rep theater up there at Syracuse. So I auditioned and got in. And it was a small part. It was for the Orange Girl, but I was going to get equity points to be a professional. And then that show fell through, and I had April free. And, you know, school finishes second week in May. And I said, oh, Mom, what do you think? Should I do this, Miss Greater Syracuse? And she said, well, is there any scholarship money? I said, yeah. I don't know, maybe $500. She's like, well, do it. So I sang a song that I did in performance class called Being Good Isn't Good Enough, which is from Hallelujah Baby. Being good isn't good enough. Being good won't be good enough. When I fly, I must fly extra high. And I'll need special wings so far to go from so far below. Should I try? Am I strong enough? Is there time? Have I long enough? Gotta fly. And if I fall, that's the way it's gotta be. There's no other way for me. Being good just won't be good enough. I'll be the best or nothing at all. So that's what I sang, which you know because you produced that for an upcoming project. So it was easy. I sang that song. A friend of mine who was another student played. I got a gown down at Sibley's department store and a bathing suit. And then I won that in April. And then I went on to sing the same song and won Miss New York State in July. And then went to Atlantic City that September and ended up winning Miss America at age 20. Now, you know, I was a musical theater major, so I knew I was good at singing and dancing and acting. And that's what I really wanted to be. I wanted to go to Broadway. And I also, when I finished, wanted to go to Yale Drama to get my master's. So this was a major detour because not only was I not finishing school at the time, but I was thrust into being a symbol, I don't want to say not a beacon, but you know, I had hate mail, I had death threats, and at 20 years old, I look at my kids and look at them when they were 20 and like, how did I manage all this?
Yeah,
you know,
and that was at a time when, I mean, we still have a lot of room to grow in this country with race. And that was at a time that was much darker, considerably darker.
Well, but you know, my parents went through the 60s. So that was the civil rights movement. So we thought the 80s were not as dark as what they had gone through. So it was kind of a big wake up call when I was confronted with so much racism, also because I'm from New York. So, you know, I've grown up going to the city. Every neighbor has a story from a different country, different culture. So you're used to the food. And that's the great thing about New York. You can go anywhere and find any culture and enjoy, like, you know, really immerse yourself in the culture. That's kind of the luxury of being in New York, you know?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Well, but you persevered, and that's a, you know, a character that I ascribe to you. I think you're so incredibly resilient in spite of all the stuff and ups and downs over the years in your career, and you don't seem to wear the hard times. You don't wear them on your sleeve. You don't show them.
No, I don't. But my method is I go through it and then I'm out. So I feel hard and then I can move through. And I think that's kind of what you have to do in life. You can't put it on the back burner. Oh, I'll get to that emotion. Oh, I'll deal with that. You know, you've got to feel it, face it, and move through it. And also know your value. You know, I value my talent. I value who I am. And I know that whenever anything happens, when the dust settles, people will see who I am.
Yeah.
And everyone has that.
Yeah. And you've been at points where a friend of mine pointed out to me that you've been at several points in your career where you were making a film or several films and raising your kids and working on an album at the same time and having rocky relationship situations. All
yeah.
at the same time.
Well, that's kind of how it always happens, kind of like that.
Yeah.
You know, when it comes, it comes. And that's what you have to remind yourself that, you know, you don't want to say, I won't say yes to everything, but when you're hot, you know, you never know where it's going to come from. And that's what I love about our business. You know, I can do a Broadway show and somebody could happen to see it. I did Sondheim and Sondheim in 2010. And I love Sondheim. I knew James Lapine and Stephen Sondheim because I had done Into the Woods in 2002. And James called and said, listen, I'm doing the show about Stephen's life, and it's gonna be a bunch of interviews, and then the cast will come and sing the song, whatever's pertinent to where he was in that life. So, you know, did that. And Mark Cherry, who's a huge Sondheim fan, actually came to the show. And then I got a call, a few days later from Mark Chang saying, saw you in the show, you're great. Do you want to be on Desperate Housewives? So again, it wasn't like my agents were like, what is she going to do after this? When stuff happens and it's, kind of got the flow, you got to go for it. And then you never know what's going to happen after that.
Yeah. Now that when those life slings and arrows came at you, I know through certain albums, you chose specific songs that represented emotional touchstones in your career, Sweetest Days and Who You're Thinking About. Were any of the albums specific to things that were happening? The album timing or the album itself? Was there an overwhelming feeling with any of the albums where you felt like, I'm pissed off about this, or I'm glad about this, or this one's about my family, or this one's about this turning point in my career?
Well, the toughest one was Everlasting Love, because I had to record that after just having, I don't want to say being dumped, but being dumped on my second husband. So here I am doing, everything's all ready. We've got all the songs picked, and I was supposed to go to the recording studio, and it's called Everlasting Love, and I'm supposed to sing about love, and it was friggin' heartbreaking because, I sang One Less Bell to answer when, Marilyn McCoo. And that was okay. That was right on the mark. So that was an easy one to get through and kind of hold it together. But that was the most disjointed, just because I was going through such a dark time, and I had to pretend that I feel like a loving person. But like when you mentioned Who Are You Thinking About, that was a song that I did with Phil Dalston. And Phil was like, what are you thinking? And back in the day, we had filofaxes, so I had my little pages, and I was just writing kind of like, free verse, just thoughts. And I gave him probably about 4 little pages of like, you weren't thinking about me. Who were you thinking about? Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you, all this stuff. And of course, he did an amazing job. And it's one of those numbers when I perform it, I make the audience decide or pick whether they think it's husband number 1 or 2. So, and people yell out 1, 2. So it's funny. But that's art reflecting life, and it's always some kind of overflow with your life and what you can give to a character or behind the mic. My approach to singing, as you know, because we've toured for so long together, it's more of an actor's approach to the microphone and setting the mood and setting the moment before. And that's also an acting thing. When you're in the wings, right before you go on, you have to say, what's my moment before? What have I just been doing? Where was I? And then you embody the feeling that you need to carry out onto stage. So that's what I kind of do when I'm in the mic. It's I definitely get a wonderful feel from my community, which is the band, which is family. So we're all supportive. We all know each other so well and know each other's tempos and stuff that it's a solid unit. So I feel supported. But my approach is as an actor when I get, and I'm going to tell you a story. I'm going to sing a song and tell you who this person is and why they're doing it, as opposed to vocal acrobatics, which I get and I know, and people can riff their asses off, and that's fantastic. That's just not my comfort zone.
Yeah, and as an aside, you mentioned your band is a family. That goes both ways, and everybody who's listening should know that Vanessa's the greatest band leader and boss. We all feel like she's the greatest boss ever, and she's very loyal, she's very caring, and she's she hangs out and it's all family and all love, and she calls people on their shit, which I think is great. That's what you do in your family.
That's the educator in me, huh?
That's right.
I know you can do that better. Was there a problem?
And I can hear the difference.
Yes. Yeah.
That's the scary thing about you as a boss, is that because you have so much music background, you really can hear the difference. And JT and I talked about it. She was like, yeah, you see the look?
You're like, what's going on? Oh my God. I love it then.
So you're in these early parts of your career and coming out of Miss America, and and I know the thing I wanted to talk to you, I talked to you on the phone about this,
Mhm.
is this idea of branding and personal branding. Whether we think we're doing it as or not as artists and
Mhm.
musicians, we're creating a brand. And even if you
Yeah.
don't think you're creating a brand, you're creating a brand. You're creating a way that people perceive you. And you decided to take more control over your own brand at an early point because you felt like things were getting out of your control. And you've maintained that, and you've maintained an outlook. How do you do that? In what ways, what steps do you take to maintain, to make sure that, and you do it in a very natural way. It doesn't feel phony. It doesn't feel like you're
Mhm.
forcing anything. But I think people perceive you as, a very positive way. And what ways do you do to keep control of your personal brand?
Well, that's good. I think when you talked about creating a brand, it was out of frustration being an actor after being 21, having gone through a major scandal and trying to figure out what to do. I was getting a lot of offers, but there was stuff I did not want to do. And but I was acting and doing half-hour guest appearances on stuff and just feeling frustrated with people making assumptions. And I know a lot of the meetings that were set up were for a group of people to say, oh, guess what? We got Vanessa Williams coming in. So it was more, I could feel the objectification of who I was because it was such a huge scandal. It was like, you're never going to believe I met her, I saw her, let's get her to read for this. So I could read through all that stuff. And it was my then husband, who ended up being my manager, he said, if you really want to handle your career and have control, then recording is how you can do it, because you can sing the songs that you want to sing, you can approve all the images and do your videos and whatever, and you've got control over that. And that's kind of what, and I'd gotten a couple of inquiries about or offers for being a recording artist, but I waited till I found the right one, and Ed Eckstein ended up signing me. So that was the first to brand myself as a recording artist and be able to really do, hone in on what I wanted to do. And then from that, other doors opened. So then I ended up getting on Broadway as a recording artist, which is funny because I was a musical theater chick, and I ended up getting, so again, going into that world, people are like, oh, she's a recording artist, let's see what she can do. And then they realized that I had dance training, that I was a musician, that I was consistent, that I knew how to warm up and take care of my voice. And that's a whole nother discipline. When you are in theater, you've got to do 8 shows a week. So you can't blow it out, one night and think you can, sail away the next 7, night shows. You got to those are techniques that you learn when you're trained.
That's right.
And so I don't know what the question was. What was it?
The question is
branding.
And
Yeah.
you still control your brand. You're still careful to pick what you do and what you don't do, and how you present yourself. Not so much how you're seen, because I don't think of you as I think of you as a very genuine, warm person, but I think you're careful about it in a smart way.
It's got to be organic, and anyone who knows who I am and brings me something, if I don't feel like it's a natural fit, or I don't get excited about it because I feel like there's some kind of connection, then it's not worth it.
Right.
People can see through everything. People know, and the more the veil is thinning with so much interaction with the world changing. There's no there's no like the magic is gone in terms of production value and all that stuff, and who's really singing all that stuff now. The veil is coming down, and it's being very transparent, and you get to see who everybody really is.
Yeah. And the other things that everybody's visually accessible all the time now, which leads me to my next question for you, because you're very good at this. You're very good at you're very good at presenting yourself in a very natural way. And I say that not because you're a beautiful looking person, of course you are, but you put forward a positive look, and you don't get involved in sort of phony presentation of who you are. And you don't take steps to try to hide yourself behind artificial treatments and surgeries and things like that. and I think the genuine quality of it is appealing to people. But there's a lot of pressure for people who are not art musicians, kids and stuff, to be visible online with Instagram and Snapchat and all this stuff and Facebook. And that's a lot of societal pressure that I feel like is very damaging. And then there's also the question about musicians who are now having to be visual artists. Because, you know, I didn't start music so that I could learn how to edit videos. What do you
but you're good at them, though, that's for sure.
Well, necessity is the mother of invention.
Well, you know, that's part of showbiz. So even though I might look natural, I got up early, I had to blow out my hair and make sure it looked great, make sure the lighting is good. I got a ring light. I mean, do the makeup. So when you're a performer, you got to put your drag on. You know, that's kind of part of the business. So that's a given. There is a lot of pressure for these young kids, just everybody in general, because there's so many filters and distortions and stuff that make people look perfect, and everyone is unique. So you have to embrace what's good. I mean, I remember growing up, and my mother would say, "Stop poking at your lips." I go, "I'm not poking at my lips." She's like, "Yeah, you are." And these were my lips. I go, "These are my lips." And I had the same lips as my dad did, and now full lips are huge. You know, I remember having a butt and like, oh, you know, a bubble butt. Now butts are gigantic. So you got to embrace what you have and, you know, work with what you got. And also it's, you know, I'm at an age now where I'm trying to remain looking like myself and age gracefully. And most of that comes from within, for sure, just to feel happy. Because people can see that you're happy and you're grounded, and that's kind of what also opens doors for you. But the great thing now about a woman my age is that there's so much technology that forgoes the stuff that happened years ago, that, you know, there's stuff for, you know, rejuvenation and tightening and firming and fat loss and all that stuff, so you don't have to you know, go under the knife or so that's a great thing about the future.
I'm not saying you don't take any steps. I'm saying you haven't done things that make you look like, what happened to Vanessa? Last year she was Vanessa.
Right. Who's that Asian lady?
This year she looks like a balloon stretched out.
Yes.
But
I'm hanging on.
I think your message about being genuine is great. And what do you think about young musicians and young artists who are trying to make a go with it and present themselves? And there's a lot of pressure now for musicians to try to make this happen, you know, and to compete visually, because everybody has a short attention span. They want to see this and they want to see that. And
well, the one thing about my band, which the first tour we went out was 1997 with Luther Vandross, our set list is so broad, and we do Broadway, we do blues, we do rock, we do, you know, standards, we do R&B, ballads and up tempos and disco. So young musicians, get as much experience as you possibly can, and also look at who really excites you, and find out where they went and who they studied with, and you know, and what instruments they played. And everybody that's, again, a part of my musical family can play multiple instruments, you know, between you know, Al started out a trumpet, he can play any, you know, and everyone also is a producer. They all write, they all produce. So I'm surrounded by such creativity, but versatility. So, I mean, I started out on violin, Suzuki violin, and then I stretched over to flute and started getting hyperventilating. Like, I don't know, I love the sound, but I couldn't figure out how to not make myself pass out. And then I went to one of my dad's concerts that he was giving, one of his school concerts, and I saw a black girl playing a French horn. I go, that's what I want to do. And I love the sound, but I also saw somebody who looked like me. I was like, okay, there we go. And then I ended up playing the French horn. So, you know, ask questions, get as much experience as you possibly can. Play in the pit crew of your local, you know, your local theater, you know, and also, and that, you never know where that'll leave you. But for instance, Rob Mathis, who's produced 4 of my records, when I was doing Kiss of the Spider Woman on Broadway. It's based in Argentina, and I had a lot of tangos. And there was one song that Jeff Kivett, who's a phenomenal trumpet player, would do this great solo, and I had to dance with him. So we had a complete connection every night. And I could see him in the pit, but I would also, get drinks with him and stuff, and wonderful. So I had this, I was still on Mercury Polygram, and they wanted me to do a Christmas album. I said, Kivett, who do you know? I need some Christmas songs. And he said, I've got the guy. This guy is Mr. Christmas. He lives in Coscob, Connecticut. I'm telling you. And he got me a cassette back in the day. We're talking 1994. And I heard Rob's stuff, and he ended up having a relationship with all my music since then. And that's how we met, through Rob. But again, I got my Rob through a musical theater connection. So you never know where it's going to come from. So be open and be brave, you know?
Yeah, that's very smart. And you've been, the other thing is that a lot of people know that you sing, and a lot of people know your big hits, Save the Best for Last and all the other big hits. But I don't think a lot of people know how well you sing, because even musician friends of mine discounting and saying, or not discounting, but just saying, oh yeah, Vanessa Williams, I remember those songs. But then I got the very special opportunity of hearing you sing when we're tired. I remember going to Japan with you, and we were playing a third set. I think we'd only been there a day, and we're all wiped out, and the whole band is like, oh, third set. And you got out there, and you said, let's play encore, and you killed it. I think you were singing, you might have been singing something that we only ran over in the sound check.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you, wow, you performed under duress with a monitor mix that wasn't ideal at the time. And your voice was tired, and we were physically exhausted. And you just brought it in a way that a lot of vocalists would wither under, and those conditions. And then I wanted you to talk a little bit about your vocal practice and your warm up and routine, and if you work with a coach regularly, and the discipline there, because you really are a singular singer in my mind,
Well, thank you. Let's see. So when it's time to kick in, I think that's the theater training. When the curtain goes up, it doesn't matter how you feel, you got to put on a show. And that's why it's more of an ensemble kind of feel that I have, as opposed to I'm the star. It's all about me. And if I don't want to do it, we're out of here. So it's just one for all and all for one, and let's get this done. And you just have to dig deep. And again, it's not brain surgery. We're trying to make people have an experience. So if you can physically get yourself to make it through, you'll get through, and you have fun, and then it's over. You just have one more song. We can do it. Let's get it over. What was the second part of
the second question was about second part of the question was about your voice, your voice training, your warm-up routine, your vocal coaching.
Okay, well, I think in the back of my head, since my mother was a choral instructor, for instance, in high school, I played marching band, I played mellophone and baritone. I think they wanted me to. Somebody asked me to be a cheerleader, and I said, "You're not being a cheerleader; you're ruining your voice." And she was very clear about. So you knew not to yell, you knew not to scream, you knew that you had to access your diaphragm from a very early age. So I knew the technique because I had my mom as a vocal instructor. And then when I got into college, that's when I started learning classically. And when I did Carmen Jones down at the Kennedy Center, I was completely overwhelmed. I knew I had the range, but I was completely overwhelmed and terrified. But I had an operatic coach come in and work with me, and we have to warm up you have to warm up because it's an instrument. So it's like warming up for anything. You want your muscles to be relaxed and to be worked in different places in your head in terms of placement. So that's why you do different warm-up exercises to stimulate the nasal, to get your larynx up, down. Yeah. And again, it's another skill that you have to, practice makes perfect, and you just keep doing it. But that gives you longevity too. I love when people say, God, you sound just like your records, or you sound better than your records. That to me is fantastic.
Yeah. I remember working on something for you recently, and I said, what key? And you said, oh, the original key's fine. Not dropping any keys. The original key from 25 or 30 years ago, that's fine.
I know. Yes, although my speaking voice has definitely gotten lower, that's for sure.
Yeah, but you still have a very airy top end, which is great. And I should tell this story, since you mentioned your recording. We were working in the studio on some songs for this recording, and I said, well, we were working in kind of a smaller studio, and Vanessa was singing scratch vocals in the control room, and I said, well, that's great. Let's set up a mic, and maybe we'll get something we can keep. 90% of the vocals are from the rhythm section tracking day where you were singing in the control room into what I thought would be throwaways or, possible placeholders.
Right.
Just because you came ready to sing these songs, some of them very delicate jazz songs, and you brought it, and that's another evidence to me about your work ethic. And
well, that's the great thing about music, though. When it's in your bones and there's a connection, it's so easy to have them stay there. And those were all songs that were important to me in specific times of life. I sang "Being Good Isn't Good Enough" because that was the transition from being a college, undergrad into overnight historical figure. So that was a major one. And you surprised me with getting Wynton Marsalis. Remember, Wynton came in, and that was an amazing. We did Zazu Zaz because I had done After Midnight, and Wynton's lovely band was there, and he was one of the producers, and it was great. He did an amazing solo. But it's a great life, and it's been so wonderful. I was watching last night. There was a battle between Babyface and, did you watch it? Babyface and Teddy Riley. And I mean, not only have I worked with Babyface at least 3 or 4 times, he produced about 3 or 4 of my records, but Teddy Riley apparently wanted to produce me for my first record, The Right Stuff, and Ed Eckstein didn't hear it at all and passed. And then when Teddy blew up, Ed's like, I got to tell you, he tried to get, I was like, no! You mean I could have had 10? So that was Ed. He just, he has great ears. You just missed that one.
Yeah. Well, fair enough. So do you since you exude this positivity, do you meditate? Do you have a daily ritual? And do you have a ritual when you're home? And obviously everybody's home right now, but do you have a morning ritual, a meditation, exercise, or some sort of setting yourself up for the day when you're at home? And how does that change when you're traveling? Sometimes you're on a flight to LA and you're doing a TV appearance, or you're driving into town, or you're running off to here and there, your fashion shows, etc.
Right. It's when I can find it. When I have some solitude, I'll meditate. I've got a great meditation coach that I talk to basically every week since the whole pandemic, but also since January. Which helps me kind of go through the process and just open up. Yeah. But my ritual is getting my tea or coffee in the morning, depending on what's good, and then I get my New York Times crossword puzzle every morning and run through that, and then either have to go to rehearsal or clean the house, whatever it is. But for us, every day is not the same. Yeah. So.
But especially you. I remember talking to you. I would say, "Oh yeah, are you back home from the gig?" No, I'm already in Minneapolis or whatever doing my show. We had just gotten home from somewhere.
Right.
But so, since you mentioned the times, how fast are you at the Sunday?
It depends. So it gets incrementally harder. Monday's easy. Yeah. So the Sunday, I haven't timed myself, but Sunday's good because what's great about it's the crossword puzzle is like life. You go through the stuff that's easy, you just whiz down, scan it, and you fill in the stuff that you know easily. Then you start from the top or you start from the bottom. I do better vertically. Horizontal, for vertically, I can do better for some reason. Then I go horizontally. And then I take a break or something will happen. I come back and then I'll see something that I wasn't even thinking about. And it finally comes to me. So I love that kind of puzzle building aspect of crosswords, that you just keep going and be diligent. And then if you really can't find out, you just go online. Like, well, who was the Pope in 16th century that I can't remember?
We've traveled a lot together, and anybody who's traveled a lot in the U.S. sees there's still a lot of division, and there's still a lot of work to do, no pun intended, for racial equality, gender equality, economic equality. And you've done a lot of work with organizations in support of these things, youth in distress, and LGBTQ rights. And what do you think that we can do as individuals to help affect the change of minds? Because the change of minds is what needs to happen, right?
I think it's getting so much better than it was before. I mean, the fact that straight men watch RuPaul's Drag Race together as couples and comment on drag queens and feel no threat or no issue. I mean, we've come a long way for kids to be able to transition, and now there's no judgment. My kids have no judgment, basically. Not completely, but they're such a, sorry, my other phone is ringing. They have such openness, and they've been exposed to so much, which has been fantastic. So, I think we're in a great spot. I think this is really even the playing field for everyone to have to sit and just reset and check yourself and check the world. And we're really seeing inequities in healthcare, which is all kind of bubbling up to the surface. And that stuff will have to be handled. Again, you can't ignore it. It's pervasive. So yeah. I think we're in a great time to really open a lot of doors and make a lot of change.
That's such a positive thought. And I think that's the best of what's going on now, is people having time to think about stuff, because we're not out there doing anything else, and we're not too busy to think about it and talk about it. And I love the idea of talking to you, of getting this message from you today, which is fantastic. And I did want to ask about a couple funny stories. This isn't a funny story. Maybe with time passage it's funny, but you were telling about your mic being stolen from the Hit Factory.
Yes, my C40. I had a beautiful Stephen Paul tube mic that it was used, retooled, amazing, and I did a lot of my hits on it because it was really warm and all that sibilance but warmth, and it's crisp, but it was just amazing. And I had done I think it was with Quincy, I believe. Was it with Quincy? Quincy was doing some duet album or something, and he had me with Luis Miguel, and he wanted me to sing She's Out of My Life in a key that was way too low, and I was like not into the song at all, and just, that's one of my regrets. Like, I got a chance to record with Quincy, and I hated the song. It was in the wrong key, and I just sort of said that instead of like clamming up, like, I can do it, because I did not do well, because I didn't like the song, and it wasn't in my key. Anyway, so I had brought my mic and I left it at the Hit Factory. And then my then assistant was supposed to pick it up, I guess, and she went to pick it up, and it was not an artist lockup. So that was crushing. That was crushing, because it was a piece of my history, but also kind of my quality of sound. Right. Yeah. But,
well, any other interesting or funny stories from those recording periods? You worked with so many producers and so many musicians and all those. Well,
who really, the first time I heard myself on the radio was with George Clinton. George Clinton, again, another musical theater story. Wow. I did a show called One Man Band. There was a female, it was off Broadway, James Lacine, had written and starred in it, and I was one of the cast members, and Deborah Barsha was a music director. So we both moved out to LA from New York at the same time, and back in 80, 85, 86. And she said, I got this gig to sing a background on this guy's record, George Clinton. I go, George Clinton? I go, she goes, yeah, you want to sing on it with me? I said, absolutely. So we ended up singing background on a song, Go Do Fries Go With That Shake, and Hey Good Looking. And he's like, I want to produce you. So we went to see Prince at the, what's the arena, Universal Amphitheater. And we saw Prince. We went backstage to meet Prince. So it was me, George Clinton, my then, I wasn't married to my husband, but my boyfriend at the time, and Prince. And Prince, George said, this is Vanessa, how you doing? And I said, and this is her boyfriend, Ramon. I said, oh, I forgot. I was like, yeesh.
Oh, no.
So Prince, obviously, I had no chance with Prince at all after that. But he did give me a cassette with 2 songs, and I cannot, for the life of me, find that cassette.
Lost Prince songs?
I know. It's got to be somewhere. It's got to be somewhere here. Yeah. But there's a ton. Well, just recently, Bill Withers passed, and when I was doing "Hello Like Before," it's been a year. On my he came to the studio and surprised me. I burst into tears because he was my dad's favorite, and I grew up listening to his music. Driving in our Econoline van with the 8-track, and we'd pop in Bill Withers and Grandma's Hands and all that stuff. Driving up to Buffalo for Thanksgiving and all. That was a really emotional moment for me.
Wow, that's so fantastic. Well, Vanessa, thank you so much for spending some time with me today. And
we didn't talk about flying together.
Oh, that's right. Yes. So I guess I should have asked about things that you like to do other than music, because you do like to get out and be adventurous.
Yeah, I'm a risk taker.
Yeah.
And so I'll walk into rehearsal and I'll say, who wants to go flying? And Henry will be like, I do. So we ended up flying in Guam.
Yeah, we flew.
What is that? 172? Yeah.
Yeah, 172. And this pilot, I'm sure it was completely fine, but he put you in the pilot seat, in the left-hand seat, and he said, "Okay, now you're going to take off." And I'm sitting in the back.
And just slowly pull up, but it was fantastic. That was amazing. Yeah. And then sailing. You're a great sailor, so I've been sailing with you a couple times, and I love adventure.
Yeah, and you like the horseback ride.
I do. I do.
So does your daughter Melanie.
She does. Yeah. I try to horseback ride everywhere in the world that I go, just because you get a chance to see the geography in a way that you wouldn't in a park or on a train. So I try to do that. Yeah.
Yeah, and it keeps you active, keeps you moving, keeps you alive. I remember you saying on the road, you feel like you got to move.
Got to move. Look at my mom, 80 years old. Can't keep her in the house.
That's right. And when this thing is all done, hopefully you'll be returning to London to City of Angels.
Yes, I'm currently supposed to be starring in City of Angels at the Garrick Theater in the West End, which was going to be my West End debut. And we were just a week away from debut. We were in preview, so we had 2 weeks of shows that people saw. And we've got a spectacular cast. And of course, Cy Coleman did the music, and it's all kind of beautiful bebop jazz swinging stuff. It's a great, the score, even if you're like, musicals, you'll love this musical because the score is so great. But it's also really interesting, and it's glamorous, and I can't wait to get back and recreate my role, but also have a nice run, because I was loving living in London. It was one of those dreams that I've always had, to be able to live there. And I made great friends and friendships. And I was literally in the pubs. When did I fly home? They closed the theaters March 16th. And we were in the pubs that night, and then all hell broke loose. So, yeah.
Well, I'm sure that'll be back with you, especially with you, Eddie. So. Right.
Yeah,
but
I'm looking forward to it.
Well, thank you so much for spending time with me today.
Thank you, Henry.
I hope that we get to play music this fall. Well, I guess we'll see.
We'll see. I mean, who knows? But maybe if not in the States, someplace else. But you never know. But my heart goes out to anyone who's lost anyone. And actually, one of our band members, Leo was in the hospital.
Yeah, he was in the hospital.
He was in the
But,
hospital.
yeah.
Yeah. So we're so happy that he's well. And I saw him yesterday. He's got a beautiful white beard. It looks actually sexy on him. So I think
Oh,
he
you
should
should keep the beard.
you should keep the beard.
Yeah.
Yeah. But love you guys all. You know who you are. Our band family. And then love all my fans who tuned in. And Henry is no joke. He's amazing. For those that you don't know him, when you come to see me, you'll see Henry. He plays every piano, keyboard, device known to man, but also arranges and produces and writes, and he's amazing. So it's a pleasure, and it's nice to talk about stuff that, you know, is genuine and relevant to me.
Have your candor today. Thanks so much, Vanessa. Have a great day.
Thank you. All right, take care.
Okay.
You too. Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for joining me for this episode of The Right Key. If you enjoyed the episode, there's a lot more coming. Please click the subscribe and like buttons below. If you want to know more about me or our guests, you can find lots of information in the link just below the video. See you next time.